Hey, welcome everyone to the Donovan Live post-game show right here on WKYC's Facebook Live with Jim Donovan. I'm Dave DiNatale, coming to you at halftime of the Cavaliers and the Thunder. Just happened to work out this way that we were able to come on at halftime. Cavs up 5, 62-57. Pretty much, Jimmy, picking up where they left off the other night with, again, the same idea of letting LeBron James kind of create from within and finding these new perimeter shooters. I mean, whether it's Jordan Clarkson or Rodney Hood, I mean, let those guys find spots outside and wait for passes, and LeBron gets it to them.
Yeah. Well, the key thing is LeBron seems like a very happy guy right now.
Yes.
I mean, there's a much different mood. There's a much more positive mood. There are smiles. There's reaction to good plays. And that typifies a team that's playing really well. I mean, that's what you saw when the Cavaliers made their playoff runs and to the ultimate win the title. And you did not see that. I can't think of even that time when they had that pretty good streak, 19 out of 21 or whatever, after the beginning of the season. Still, I just kind of felt that there wasn't that kind of demeanor, personality on the team. The team really actually lacked a lot of personality. It was very mechanical. It was a mishmash of older guys that were coming in that, were really on the tail end of whatever is left in their NBA careers. That is very different right now. I mean, in a week's time, and it will be about a week coming up on Thursday, in about a week's time, this has dramatically changed. And it's interesting that it has taken root so quickly.
I don't know if I've ever seen a time when the AllStar break comes when I wish it wouldn't come for another week or two, because I'd love to see Ty Lue get more time. And obviously they'll practice a little bit after the break before they restart next Thursday. But it's almost a shame. It's like, boy, I don't know. I mean, they're up 5 at half. I don't know how it's going to finish yet, but I mean, they're sure looking good here coming out with all these changes, and you'd love to see them be able to continue it, not stop so everybody can go to Los Angeles or go home.
Yeah, the state of affairs in the NBA is really different right now. And I was listening, to a national sportscast today that was going through the day and kind of setting up the schedule of what's going to happen in the NBA. And of course, he said, well, the new look Cavs get set to try and make it 4 wins in a row. And then he went on to the Rockets, who are in the middle of a winning streak. And there are a bunch of teams. Toronto is playing much better now. They're in the middle of a winning streak. There are these teams now that are predictably up at the top of their conferences, and they go on these winning streaks because now the cream has separated from and has risen to the top in the NBA. And you are figuring out there are some teams that take a flyer and get off to a good start or maybe have a good patch of the season. But really, when it gets down to it, it's going to be the Golden States, the Houstons, the Clevelands, Toronto. And again, now the Celtics are an interesting team. The way that they have been playing, which is not well. And you wonder, is that just because they're in a little bit of a funk like Golden State was in about a week ago? Or are the Celtics in a real funk, that they're just a bit worn out because of the loss of a critical free agent in Gordon Hayward? And I realize it was in game 1 of the season. They have weathered the storm, but I think the storm might be winning a little bit.
Yeah, it might have come back to them a little bit. What did you think of Steve Kerr last night for Golden State? Speaking of Golden State, basically handing players the dry erase board and saying, hey, you coach us. You draw this play up. You get us out. Now, I think it was Devin Booker said, hey, look, for the Suns, hey, look, we're terrible, and when we're bad, they can do whatever they want. I thought that was an interesting way to maybe get through a season where you go into a rut.
Yeah, well, he has said about a week ago, maybe even longer, about a week and a half ago, when Golden State, even when they were winning, they were having to come back and pull games out. But then they started to lose some games, and they had a couple of embarrassing losses. And he said, hey, look, we're terrible right now. And we are dead tired. We're tired of each other. And we need a break. I mean, we need the All-Star break. And so, I think that Golden State is, and that Steve Kerr's a fun guy. He was a fun guy as a player. He had a real self-deprecating sense of humor. He was just a great guy. It's part of the success. He was a great broadcaster.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was really a great broadcaster.
He wasn't such a great general manager. But, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. I mean, he's been a terrific coach, and there's no doubt about it. He selected the right situation to go into. But I think that he's trying to inject a little fun into, a game against the Phoenix Suns. just before the All-Star break. And I think that's important. I think these teams, the NBA season, I don't think it's divvied up the right way.
I don't either.
I think the All-Star break comes too late.
Yeah, I felt like it was the other way around. Like the All-Star break came late, and the trade deadline last week was earlier than I can remember it. Yeah, it's just.
I think it was.
It was. Yeah. I mean, the season started earlier, and I understand why. They wanted to space out the games so you had less of the back-to-backs and the 3 games and 4 nights and that kind of stuff. And I get that. That's seeing. I mean, LeBron. I don't think LeBron's had a rest game yet this year, for example. None that I can think of the top of my head. So clearly, that's been a good thing, I think, for the league. But, yeah, it's just the All-Star break being when it is. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, really, I'm not a fan of the All-Star game.
I'm not either.
And no matter what they do with it, I don't care who's coaching it, whether it's real coaches or captains, as it is in this case, or having a draft. What if they just said to you, you're an All-Star? Let's continue playing.
Exactly right.
Let's not go until the end of June.
Right.
Let's just continue playing. You're an All-Star. Congratulations.
Yeah. Instead of playing in in what amounts to the ultimate pickup game with no defense.
I mean, it's like the NFL situation with the Pro Bowl. Okay. I mean, the skills competition that they go through now is hideous.
Right.
Okay. And then they play the game, and this year, of course, they played it. Just before the Super Bowl. And guys are, I think that you just say you're a Pro Bowler.
You're a Pro Bowler. You're an All-Pro.
I mean, you don't go to Hawaii anymore.
Right.
And that used to be the big draw.
Right.
But even then, there was a point in time where the guys didn't want to go to Hawaii anymore.
Yeah, the guys who had played in the Super Bowl, whether you won or lost, were like, no, I'm good. I'm not going to Hawaii.
Right.
And
I just think you give them a nice watch.
Yep.
And it goes on their resume that they were a Pro Bowler.
Right.
It's like in college. If you're an All-American, you're an All-American. There isn't an All-American game.
Right.
Now there used to be. Back when I was a kid, there would be that college All-Star game would play the NFL champ.
Right. Now that would have been pretty cool to watch.
It was pretty cool. I do think one time the college All-Stars might have won.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe somebody that's watching
somebody will tell us.
Yeah, but I mean, I can remember that. But I mean, if a kid is an All-American, he's an All-American. There's no All-American game.
Right.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of the All-Star game. I'm not even. The baseball All-Star game even bugs me because there's like 58 strikeouts in the game.
Yeah, and all of a sudden every team has to be represented. And then we went to this farce where the game decided who was going to get home field advantage in the playoffs. Right. And I realized that that almost worked out very well for the Indians a couple of years ago, but I still think it's a stupid idea for an All-Star game. I never was a fan of that.
I mean, you play 162 games, you have the best record, but you got to rely on a game in early July or the middle of July to decide whether or not you get home field advantage. Now, your record gets you home field advantage in the preceding rounds of the playoffs, but not the World Series.
But not the World Series.
But that was all because, Dino, if you remember, they had that catastrophe.
Yeah.
Wasn't it in Arizona where they ran out of players?
They ran out of players,
They had a tie game.
Yeah.
And so they had to overcome that. We had to juice it up somehow.
Right, exactly.
So we did it that way.
This time it matters.
Yeah,
that was their tagline. Also going on, and you're busy with it every night on the Olympic Zone at 7:30. Winter Games continuing. We've got coverage, of course, right now on Channel 3 as Shaun White is looking to win Olympic gold in the halfpipe.
And as we speak, doing very well.
And as we speak, doing extremely well. His first effort was like 94, which is really obviously very good. Think about the Winter Olympics. When I say Winter Games, Winter Olympics, what comes to your mind first as a thought or a memory or what have you? I mean, I imagine you're going to say Miracle on Ice, 1980.
Yeah, 1980. Yeah, 1980, Miracle on Ice. I was doing radio up in Minnesota at the time. I was working in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And, of course, that's where the team was kind of based.
Yeah, they were headquartered. Yeah, right, because Herb Brooks was...
Yeah, at the University of Minnesota. Yeah. So they were kind of based there. They played a very, very extensive exhibition season leading up to the Olympics. And they played a lot of their games at the old Met.
Oh, yes.
Where the Minnesota North Stars played. And, of course, that's all gone now, and they play in a new arena downtown. But it was interesting for me, and it had and it will always have a very special place for me because the team was basically made up, probably 85–90% of it from Minnesota kids, and from the University of Minnesota. But before I was working out in Minnesota, I was the radio play-by-play voice of the Boston University Terriers.
Yes.
Jim Craig, Micah Ruzioni, David Silk, Jack
So
O'Callahan.
you covered a lot of these kids,
yeah.
both in Minnesota and obviously as the
interviewed
voice of
Herb
Boston.
Brooks many times. Yeah.
Wow.
So we were all, we were watching them before maybe a lot of you were watching them. And because they were winning so much, they were playing minor league teams, and they were kind of barnstorming around the country, playing anybody that would play them to get them ready for the tournament. But I have to tell you, I listened the night that they beat the Soviet Union was a Friday evening.
Yeah.
And I remember, it was imagine it was ice cold out in Minnesota.
I was shocked by that. Yeah,
it was.
Right.
And I wasn't ice fishing that night. And I was trying to pick up the game because remember, ABC was only going to show it on a delayed basis.
Yeah.
So I was trying to pick up the game, and I picked the game up on a Canadian radio station.
Oh, wow.
Okay? And I had the radio up against my window in my spacious furnished apartment in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and I listened to the game, but it would go, ooh, it would go in and out and in and out. It was just amazing, and I just remember just being, like hiding underneath a chair in the last 10 minutes of the game after Aruzioni had scored. But I knew Mike from his BU days. I knew Jim Craig very well from his BU days. Jack O'Callahan was a great player, and David Silk was a phenomenal player. But then I knew all those kids from Minnesota because they were a lot of them played for the Gophers.
Did you ever get to see any of those guys after the games
in
your travels?
Yeah, Jim Craig came in here to Channel 3 before one of the Winter Olympic Games a few years back, and he came in as a motivational speaker. Oh yeah, and he came in, and it was good to see him. He was a great story back there in Boston, and a real hero when he came back. His career in the NHL did not really blossomed for him. I think originally when he left the Olympics, he was a hot commodity, of course, because of his performance in Lake Placid. And he went to the Atlanta Flames.
That's right.
Then he went to the Bruins, but he just never really caught on in the NHL.
Yeah.
Now O'Callahan had a better career. He played with the Blackhawks and in their system for a while. And Aruzioni was a minor league guy.
Yeah.
Aruzioni always tells the story about, hey, 3 inches to the right and I'm painting bridges.
In Boston, that's right. I always, as a Bowling Green guy, I'd walk in BG's Ice Arena, and of course you'd see, all the stuff of Ken Morrow, and who ended up playing for the Islanders on their Stanley Cup teams right away. I talk about the best situation to be in. You go right from the Olympics right to, at the time, the best team in the NHL. They had a dynasty, won 4 cups in a row. I had a feeling that would come. I was only 5, so I really didn't get
when that happened.
When that happened, I was only 5. So I
was 6.
You were right. You were 6, so you have a better memory than I. But for me, and of course with the movie out now, it's kind of rekindled the I, Tonya thing, the Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan thing, because I just remember being. That was must-see TV for that duel when Kerrigan said, yeah, I'm able to go, and the USOC let her in, and Harding got to skate. That was like in '94. That was must-see. And I wonder, sometimes, one of the things with the Olympics is if you don't have that big story, one of the things that I think NBC's always done since they've had the games, kind of telling stories when stories aren't necessarily there. And like Red Gerard, for example, is a great story. And it's one of the things I love about us doing the Olympic Zone is, telling the stories that maybe you haven't heard yet about these athletes.
Yeah. Red Gerard was he's a really interesting guy. He came into Channel 3 with his sister and his brother. And his brother's girlfriend the day before Thanksgiving because they were back in town. That was going to be the last time he was going to be back in our area.
Because his grandparents are here.
Yeah, over in Rocky River, sure. And I have to tell you, Dino, he was, he talked to me excessively about the X Games. He was very, very excited about the X Games. And I said to him, but what about the Olympics? And he goes, yeah, it would be good. Yeah. But he was very excited about, now at the point he came in to Channel 3 and to our area, he had not qualified for the team yet. He had to win a couple of events. Right. And I think he had to win one internationally. And he was just waiting for the events. He was doing all right. He had a very good shot at making it, but it wasn't a lock yet. Right. And he just enjoyed the events of snowboarding. and that whole community.
Yeah.
Because they travel around really as a group. I mean, they have rivalries and everything, but it's kind of a camaraderie, a brotherhood that they travel around and they go to the event and they love going to the next event and the next event. I mean, and I said it tonight on one of our shows, the 5 o'clock news, that, you know, Red Gerard really, in a lot of senses, would like to get back to normal life.
Right.
Normal life, he told me, for him was wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and then snowboard the rest of the day. I think that's going to be a little bit difficult.
I was going to say that's going to be tough.
Yeah,
that's going to be tough.
So he's done a real about face after winning the gold medal, but that when they hang that around your neck, that changes you. I mean, you get this title of Olympic champion. But it really changes you.
Yeah. I mean, because now, I mean, it's the endorsements, it's the demands of your time, it's everything.
Well, as you watched him, okay, from the time he won our time on Saturday, okay, from the time he won and doing all the interviews that he did, and he's on the Today Show, and then he's on the Today Show again, and then he's doing all the different interviews. Didn't you notice that he was
exactly
cup of coffee and snowboarding and bring it on? That's all I want to do.
That's right. Please.
Yeah.
You know what I also remember speed skating has always been a sport that I think, you know, whether it was Erika Hyden, again, too young to remember that.
Well, I want to tell you that. Let me throw an Erika Hyden at you. You know, of course, he dominated in Lake Placid. And I was working in Burlington, Vermont in radio. And if you remember, there was a great deal of pressure on his sister, Beth Hyden, to kind of do what Erika Hyden did. Now, nobody could do what Erika Hyden did. That was very unfair to think that she could do it. You know, nobody has done that, really.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now I know that they have all these Flying Dutchmen that are really phenomenal and they're national heroes. But certainly in the United States, man, you know, I mean, he won 5 medals over there. He just dominated sprints and distance.
And distance, right.
But anyway, she kind of, to get away from the pressure of being, you know, in her brother's shadow and in the sport of speed skating, she was a phenomenal skier, cross-country skier.
That's right.
She came to the University of Vermont, and she became like she was on one of their national championship teams there, and I remember covering her there, and I believe her Beth's daughter has since gone to the University of Vermont and become a national champion there.
Wow.
They were a very, very, very athletic and very smart family. You know, he's a doctor.
It's like the first family of Winter Olympics, American Winter Olympics. And then I always think about Bonnie Blair, too. I love watching her.
Yeah, Bonnie Blair was a great story.
So you've talked before about getting to go, I know, Barcelona, for example, and covering the Summer Games.
Right.
If I could have given you a ticket to be on, you know, the NBC team to cover one of the sports over in South Korea and be the play-by-play guy, you know, kick somebody out of the booth for 2 weeks. Which sport?
Well, I did so much hockey that I would have really loved hockey. You know, I mean, that would have been fun. Now, you know, we're kind of back to that 1980 look of a team because the NHL did not shut down and did not allow its players to go over to the Winter Games. So we are now amateur players, former pro players, players that have played in minor leagues. Couple of college kids. There's a kid from Boston University that's on the team. I think the first African-American player that we've had play on an Olympic team. That will be interesting to watch. Because the charm of the 1980 Miracle on Ice was
they're kids.
They were kids.
They're kids.
Yeah, they were kids.
Right.
You know, and the Russian team, if you remember, they were hockey players. They were the greatest players in the world at that time. They were also soldiers in the Russian army. Right. And oh, by the way, they were in the same squad.
That's right. I can't even imagine. You know, they had won in '64. They had won in '68. They had won in '72. They had won in '76. I don't think they hadn't lost since the Americans had beaten them in '60 at Squaw Valley.
True.
And you know, I mean, it was almost basically like, okay, well, the Soviets are going to win gold. Everybody else is going to fight for, you know, silver,
medal.
bronze.
Yeah, medal, right. It was also thought that Czechoslovakia would win the silver, and that maybe the best that the United States or anyone else, Sweden, Finland, anyone else, could do was to win the bronze. But if you remember, the United States tied Sweden in the last seconds on that Billy Baker shot. And then came out and blew Czechoslovakia out.
Yeah.
And that's when you kind of went, wow, this they have something going here.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
All right, again, Winter Olympics coverage all week, all next week, right here on Channel 3. Hope you're enjoying it. We've got a lot of content here for you to follow as we go along through the games here on Facebook as well at WKYC.com. So hope you're checking that out as well. Tomorrow, geez, Jimmy, tomorrow, two things. Valentine's Day and pitchers and catchers report to Arizona for the Cleveland Indians.
Right, that's great. Boy, you know, that's it. I saw today, there were a number of teams that opened up today, and it was really strange seeing Aaron Boone as the manager of the New York Yankees. I mean, if you had said to me, Aaron Boone is doing Sports Center on ESPN tonight from one of the camps or the training camp down in Tampa, the Yankees, I would have went, oh, yeah, okay. But there he is doing, he's the manager of the New York Yankees. And I mean, these Yankees are really put together. I mean, this is like the old Bronx Bombers.
This is Murderer's Row here this year.
Or at least they're supposed to be.
They're supposed to be.
Or an Aaron Boone situation, they better be.
Exactly right. Otherwise, he'll be the next to go.
Right.
All right, we'll see you back here again tomorrow. We'll have Valentine's Day. We'll also kind of get you in on what's happening in Goodyear on the first day of spring training for the Indians. So that's all tomorrow. For David Herberton, for Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks so much for watching the Donovan Live postgame show right here on WKYC's Facebook Live.